Good afternoon. With quorum present, the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Board meeting is now called to order.
There you go.
Please turn on your microphone when speaking and mute when not speaking. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under the COC's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card located on the information table and give it to the MAG staff. If you're parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see MAG staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. Katie, please take roll call. Members of the board, please say you are here and your organization after Katie calls your name.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. Jacqueline Campbell. Lisa Glow. Chris Hallett.
Here.
Organization.
City of Peoria.
Thank you. Michael Hughes.
Here, a new leaf.
Thank you. Natalie Lewis. Rachel Milne.
Here, City of Phoenix.
Thank you. Sean Pierce.
Here, Maricopa County.
Thank you. Charles Sullivan.
Here from ABC Housing.
Thank you. Danielle Wright.
Here, ACES DV.
Thank you. Chair Vicki Phillips.
Present, Community Bridges.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is a call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under the Continuum of Care Board that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item, unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Katie, were there any comments received or anyone who wishes to offer comments at this time?
We received one public comment from Amy Schwabenlander. The Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care submitted to the HUD NOFO for unsheltered homelessness and by all reports received no funding through 2 rounds of awards. What is the COC doing to request a debrief to understand why no funding was received and how future applications may be approved? Also, there is information in the packet or newsletter regarding this COC's intention to apply to newly released youth homeless demonstration program. Advisement to the community is requested and comment. Thank you, Amy, for submitting that comment. She just arrived. We are not able to request a debrief from HUD on the unsheltered NOFO until 30 days after the final award, which was just last week, April 17th. So we plan to request that debrief once we are able to by HUD regulations. We're also hoping typically within these 30 days, we receive a breakdown of our scores. So we've not yet received how we scored or where we lost points or anything like that. So we're hoping to receive that before meeting with them to be able to say, like, what do we need to improve on? Based off of our annual NOFO, we've not done a complete deep dive, but are in the process of, we lost points specifically in places where it's objective scoring. So like one question is, did you increase rapid rehousing? And it is point in time count year over year, we decreased. So we just lost 10 points flat out. So hoping to be able to do that direct comparison to have more of an answer. The other thing that Amy asked about was the application for Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, or YHDP, if you hear that acronym. It is due at the end of June. It was just released a week and a half ago on April 13th. It's mostly driven by our Youth Action Committee. So YAC, or better known as, which Haley has given quite a bit of information, and the current mascot that we are deeming them is a yak, in case you wanted to know. Open to feedback. The other pieces of the application are a gaps analysis that ASU has been working on over the past 9 or so months, and then information from youth providers. And so really encourage, if you are interested or have information about the work in the youth space, that will be the entire topic of conversation during the next youth collaborative meeting, which is May 18th. Or to reach out to MAG staff. Haley Owens is leading the work for our staff, but we will be meeting with the YAC multiple times in both May and June to really get their feedback. They have to either, if within the application, a third of the application is driven by the YAC, and their piece is really them driving the work. So it's either a narrative response, a video response or a audio recorded response that they have to, that we have to submit within that application. Haley, anything that I missed related to YHGP?
Hello, everybody. Good to see you. I would just want to mention YHDP is unlike almost any other funding we apply for. For example, our NOFO, we have to have everybody apply to us and then we apply to HUD. YHDP is not like that at all. So we apply for all the money and then we do, if we're approved, then we do the project selection on the back end. So it is a little bit different. So it's a heavier lift, I guess, for us and for our youth action committee, but not as much on the community. So I just wanted to make that clear too. But yes, you guys are welcome to attend any and all meetings about it, and definitely give me a call or send me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Haley. Don't see any further questions. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair Phillips.
Thank you. Move on to the next agenda item. Next up is the approval of consent agenda. Our next item is we're reviewing items 3A through 3C on the agenda for consent. Does any member of the board have questions, comments, or request a presentation on any of the items? That is a no. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Okay. May I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 3A through 3C?
This is Sean Pierce. I'll move
Thank you, Sean. May
approval
we-
of consent items 3A through 3C.
I'll second it. Michael Hughes, a new leaf.
Thank you very much. We have a motion from Sean Pierce and a second from Michael Hughes. Is there any discussion of the motion from the board? Are there any comments from the public? Okay. For those in the room, we will take a voice vote. Those in favor, please say yay.
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 Those opposed, please say nay. All right. I'll now ask Katie to proceed with roll call of those joining online.
Charles Sullivan,
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
The motion passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Next item, updates. Just a quick reminder that updates for all committees were included in the COC newsletter and can be found on the MAG website. During the legislative session, we will continue to hear updates on legislative activity. With that, I would like to welcome Dylan Belmont, Human Services Planner with MAG, to provide an overview of legislative activity.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. Really short update today because there hasn't been a ton of movement. Legislature has been recessed for a little over a week now following the expulsion of one of its members, but they are expected to come back tomorrow. Once they do come back, focus will be on budget hearings. A lot of things that we've heard about over the past few months, $150 million allocation to the Housing Trust Fund, increasing the DES homeless coordination line item to $25 million, and then expanding the state LIHTC to $6 million annually until 2028. There could also be some changes to the language of any homelessness bills that require appropriations to work, but no specific details on those updates yet. That's about it. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dylan. Does any member of the board have discussion on this item at this time?
I have a question for Dylan. Michael Hughes, a new leaf. Dylan, are you hearing anything on the downtown, the zone, in terms from the legislators where they're, and what's the pulse?
There are certainly bills that aim to address that space, right? Like some of these bills that do require appropriations to work that will be moved along during this process would impact that. But, it's not that there's a clear link to it or that they're specifically to address the zone, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Okay. Next item, board membership. Thank you to the membership work group that reviewed applications of people who applied for the board. I will turn it over to Katie to provide a summary and open it up to the membership work group to add any additional comments.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. The board membership work group met and reviewed 10 applications. At this time, they would like to propose recommending Jessica Cruz with Native American Connections, Liz DaCosta with Access, and Cricket Weatherington with Arizona Housing Inc. for membership. Members of the work group, I'll turn it over to you. Do you have any additional comments or things to add before we open it up to the board? Don't all jump at once. All three of you are on this meeting.
So I have a question. So there were 10 applicants and how many openings?
There are up to 7 seats available. The alignment of seats didn't necessarily align with all applicants. So for example, currently we have only up to 1 COC funded provider seat open, even though we have received multiple applications in that sense. We had multiple like funder seats open, but not multiple funders apply.
I would be happy to speak on behalf of the committee unless my other committee members would love to speak, because this is about us, not about me. Okay, so yes, we did have 10 applications, and we really appreciated the depth of which all of the candidates came to us wanting to contribute to the cause, to the board. We felt that the 3 that were selected had the highest knowledge base and had a clear understanding of what we were asking for in the questions. We would encourage those who were not selected to continue to invest in both committees as well as the board itself and in the local efforts to end homelessness in our region. And if they have questions, they should obviously feel free to reach out to ask for some clarification. But we do identify that there will be probably some additional seats as people continue to move careers and other things. So we would encourage this committee to also look at subcommittees and into their own organizations to see who might be best as far as coming back and serving on the board as well in the future. So did I miss anything?
No, you didn't. And just to encourage folks when they do apply to less is not more. And just to share their experience and their professional experience and why they want to do this work. Some of the applications were very short in sharing that view and that lens. So that's how we ended with 3.
Yeah, and I think to the earlier question, there are still some open seats, and we'll need to work on a process to open this up for some further membership recruitment, probably later this year. So we're looking forward to that process.
I will also add in response to recommendations from the work group as well. We heard this kind of across the continuum of care. Part of the learning management system is we will be rolling out a what should you include in your application training, because we've consistently seen that folks don't necessarily explain all of what they bring to the table when they're applying for a board or committee. And so it is challenging unless we know folks personally, and that's not necessarily equitable across because we don't know every single person that's applying. So stay tuned for that. The learning management system is rolling out to come, more information to come, but that will be one of the trainings included.
Thank you very much, Sean, Katie, and the work group. Does any member of the board have any additional questions or comments? Very well then. May I have a motion to approve the new members?
This is Rachel. I move to approve the new members.
Thank you. May we have a second?
I second it. Michael Hughes, a new leaf.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion from Rachel and a second from Mike Hughes. Is there discussion of the motion from the board?
I just want to say I'm super excited to have these three join us. That's going to be huge.
Thank you.
Can I ask who the three are?
Sorry, I think I very much skipped over that. Jessica Cruz with Native American Connections, Liz DaCosta with Access, and Cricket Weatherington with Arizona Housing Inc.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? All right, for those in the room, we will take a voice vote. Those in favor, please say yay.
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 Those opposed, please say nay. All right, I'll ask Katie to proceed with roll call of those joining online.
Charles Sullivan,
Yeah.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The motion passes. Congratulations to our new board members. Katie will be reaching out to schedule onboarding, and we'll move on to the next agenda item. Next up, System Flow Dashboard new process. Katie's going to share an update to the new System Flow Dashboard process. This will include a video by Cleo Warner, Human Services Planner at MAG, that shows how to access and read the System Flow Dashboard.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. We are, as one of a little trailer to the learning management system. This will be one of the trainings available in the learning management system. We've gotten a lot of questions about how to best read the System Flow Dashboard and where to access it. So I'm going to play this video. Huge thanks to Cleo for recording this, and then happy to take any questions or comments after. Tyler.
This is the how-to video for the System Flow dashboard, and we'll walk you through how to read and interpret the three main tabs of the dashboard. Before we begin, a couple items to note. When looking at the dashboard, it's important to remember that the data displayed here reflects only those projects that are in the COC and inputting data into HMIS or the Homelessness Management Information System. Any project not using HMIS will not be in this data. Please also note that this dashboard can display long-term trends or patterns and can be used to help the COC monitor items like data quality or health of our data tracking system, but that it's not intended to draw generalized conclusions about the system on a month-to-month basis. For more information on data takeaways and trends, you can refer to the Homelessness Trends Report on the data page of the MAG website under Homelessness. The System Flow Dashboard is a platform that shows month-by-month updates of the Maricopa Regional COC data. Solari Crisis and Human Services, our HMIS administrator, is responsible for maintaining and updating the System Flow Dashboard. The dashboard consists of 5 tabs in total, though 3 of them hold most of the information you'll need. This tab, the Information tab, serves as the landing page for the dashboard. This graphic offers a visual of the groups that the dashboard is tracking, who are coming in and moving out of the homelessness system. Scrolling down, you'll see a list of definitions that will help you interpret the information provided on each of the tabs. When you're not sure what you're looking at on the other tabs, chances are the answer is in this list of definitions. So moving over to the Active Overview tab. This tab displays the overall trend lines of the total active households in the homelessness system. This means that these graphs are tracking everyone who is currently touching the homelessness system. Both graphs display data over time, starting in January of 2018. The first graph displays trend lines for the total number of active households in our system, and has 2 subsequent lines that show this total broken out into singles and families. Note that dragging your mouse over the components of the graph will provide you with additional information or context for these numbers, and if you hover your mouse over the trend line, dots will appear for each recorded month and display the month, subpopulation type, household count, and the total person count. It is important to check these numbers for added information, especially for lines such as the families trend line, which might not visually appear to change as much as singles, but could still be displaying some pretty significant changes. The next graph on this tab displays the same data as the first, but broken into 7 subpopulations. More context for these subpopulations can be found below the graph in this definition section. As with the first graph, you can hover your mouse over the lines to get more data about any given reporting month for that population. So next we'll move to the Flow Details tab. This tab displays 4 trend lines that add detail to how many and what type of households are entering and leaving the system at any given month. Like the active overview, this tab displays data from 2018 up to the present reporting month. The first graph is the actively homeless graph, which shows a trend line displaying the number of active heads of household each month. Next is the total inflow, total outflow graph, which overlays inflow numbers with outflow numbers. This is done to create a display that shows the number of heads of households that are coming into the system and those who are leaving. You can hover your mouse over these arrow icons over here to also get the definitions for total outflow and total inflow. Below this is the inflow detail, which shows further detail of the households entering the system. This displays inflow of new clients, those who return from housing, and those who have returned from inactive. As you can see, those definitions are provided here as well. And when you hover over the trend lines, you get additional data and see the numbers in context with all active households, total inflow, and total outflow. Last on the page is the outflow detail, which breaks down the households leaving the system. The graph shows 2 trend lines, one of the total number of households, and then one for those whose exits were recorded in HMIS as unknown or negative. If you look to the left of the screen, you can click on this gear icon, which will provide you with a filter and setting options to change the population, date range, and visual type that can be displayed. So for example, we can look at chronic for the last reporting year, let's say, and say I want actively homeless in a table. I want inflow and outflow in both a graph and a table, and then keep the others the same. And it changes the visuals for you and provides a different type of interactive display. And then to go back and reset, you can just put it how it was before. So then the remaining 2 tabs are generally used for back-end or internal data analysis. The BFC Reliability tab, which stands for Built for Zero Reliability, is where the Maricopa Regional COC tracks data reliability according to the National Built for Zero methodology standards. Then the Engine tab displays tables that summarize all of the dashboard data by population. And you can see there's another gear here to adjust settings. So thank you for watching this walkthrough of the System Flow dashboard. Please reach out to Mag or Solari with any additional questions you may have about this data platform.
Thank you. Are there any comments or discussion from the board or the public?
The question from Michael Hughes was, is there any sense of how many people are missed or not recorded? I think that how folks get onto the System Flow dashboard is really important here. And there's a one pager that goes along with the System Flow dashboard that will be available in the learning management system folks have to either have contacted a coordinated entry access point within the last 7 days, stayed in an emergency shelter within the last 7 days, or interacted with an outreach team in the last 30 days. I know that's getting like super technical and in the weeds. So as folks don't interact with outreach teams, they're going to be falling off, typically falling into that inactive definition, and then may come back into activity, which is why you see kind of that unknown and negative exits being high, and then that return from inactivity also being relatively high within our system. There is conversation happening both at the data committee level and across different work groups about how do we ensure that we're still capturing folks and making sure we have activity, and making sure outreach teams are touching folks every 30 days to keep them active and keep them prioritized. I think that our system has gone back and forth a number of times to really start to address outreach. Is we keep folks open for 90 days, but then when they're at the top of the by name list after 89 days, we can't locate them. And so how do we balance that? And 30 days has kind of been what the community's definition has come to, but definitely open to revisiting that if folks are interested. The other thing I'll say is this is one of the things that I think is really critical is that hovering piece. So specifically seeing if you look at March's data, we had 8,188 people experiencing homelessness, but only 6,000 households. So that's pretty different because there are multiple people in a household potentially. So I think oftentimes when we look at the system flow dashboard, the number that displays is households and not individual people. The last thing I'll add, and this will very relevant to our next agenda item, there are some things that are not in the homeless management information system, and therefore they're not going to be included in the system flow dashboard or the homelessness trends report.
Thank you, Katie. Any additional questions? All right.
One additional, if we really encourage you all to look at the system flow dashboard outside of our quarterly time at the board meeting. If you do not have a link, feel free to reach out to staff and we can get it over to you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item, the point in time count update. Michelle Miguel, Human Service Planner with MAG, will provide an overview of the point in time count results.
So thank you, Chair Phillips. Thank you for having me. The results are in with much anticipation. So the point in time count, it's a homeless count, right? And everyone in this room knows, but since we're live, that determines the number of people that are experiencing homelessness in a given point in time. So we conduct this every January. It's a brief survey to identify the needs and the characteristics of those experiencing homelessness in our community. All right. So each year the COC completes the point in time count. It's a requirement by HUD. The point in time count, it includes people experiencing unsheltered homelessness as well as sheltered homelessness. And the full report that we'll be going over now, you'll hear it here first, guys, provides a breakdown of the total populations and demographic subpopulations, and as well as jurisdictions, but we won't get into that here. Okay. Oh, wait. I was in slide 2. Yeah, there. Okay. Sorry, I didn't say next slide and I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, I was like, okay. So the point in time count, these are the results, and you could see the trend lines from 2017 to 2023. Our total number is 9,642. Unsheltered, it's 4,908, and sheltered, 4,734. And we'll get into breaking that a little bit more. And this is deduplicated data as well, HMIS data, and yeah, we'll open it up for questions after. Does anyone have any questions on this slide? Okay, all right, next slide, please. All right. So the growth rate from 2022 to now, it's a total of 18% of the sheltered count. It's increased all across the board, but the unsheltered count is minus 2%. So there's a decrease in that. And the investment of local and tribal governments with the sheltered beds has really helped like increase that sheltered count. So it kind of balances out there. It's still high. All right, next slide. The family breakdown. So we did see an increase of families by 23%. And the families are, it's one adult and one child under the age of 18. And that includes the sheltered number. And if you see the lines, the orange, the orange line is unsheltered, and then the blue is sheltered. And then the purple one is going to be the total. And that's how it is in the other slides as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's been an increase of chronically homeless individuals by 103%. This year, the chronic unsheltered number increased by 17% since last year. The chronic sheltered number, it was increased by 81% as well on the chart line. So that's our highest. There was also a spike in the veteran community, an increase of 20% since 2022. And that's veterans experiencing sheltered and unsheltered. And also, just to mention on the veteran slide, since all of this information in the survey is self-reported, we wouldn't know their discharge status. So just to keep that in mind. Next, unaccompanied youth, 18 to 24, there was a decrease of, well, the number's been increasing the last couple of years, but we did see a decrease on that day as well. And then, so this year, there was more of a breakdown in age groups. Here are the charts. I'll let you get it. And if you could see, our highest are adults 35 to 44 and adults 25 to 34. They make up about 21% of the community of the PIT numbers. And then children make up 0 to 17, 12%, and youth 18 to 24, and older adults make up 7% of the total number. Next slide, please. Okay. And in previous years, our gender breakdown has stayed pretty consistent. There's more males in our system than females. 35% identified as female, 1% transgender, and 64% were males. Next slide. So here there's been, so by race, there was a slight decrease in the white population and American Indian and Alaskan Native. And there was a slight increase of Black and African American in this year's PIT count. Next slide, please. And then this is just additional populations. So yeah, there's about 200, and that's a lot for mental illness. I don't have the percentages on that one, but. And then there's an increase, well, all across in all additional populations. for mental health, substance abuse, folks living with HIV/AIDS, and domestic violence situations. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we did ask additional survey questions this year. The rent increase was a new one this year. The COVID question was still there because people are still experiencing homelessness due to the pandemic. And also pets, that was there last year. It's been an increase for pets compared to last year, I think by about 100. And then the rent increase for 40. That's their reason for homelessness. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's next? So how do we use this data? We use this data for planning. And we have to remember too, it's one snapshot of one day as well. But we rely a lot on our HMIS data as well and our regional responses, and try to connect people that are experiencing homelessness while we're conducting the count during the day of the count. So that's how we use it. And then, well, the benefits of doing the count, it brings dollars to the community. And as I said previously, it's for planning purposes, and it helps us analyze trends throughout the years that we've been doing it as well. And the limitation, though, the data is self-reported, and it does not give us the full picture of homelessness because it's just in one day, one point in time. And as the number of people keep increasing in the region, I mean, so does the efforts around that. There's a lot of like amazing things happening in our community. Yeah. And I want to thank everyone too, because it was a long road. I can't believe we made it here with the planning and everything, and it's out, and now we'll start presenting and go with next steps. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any comments or discussion from the board? No? Can I have a motion to approve the point in time count results? Oh, sorry.
Yes, and also it'll be uploaded. The final report will be uploaded to the MAG website as well. So you'll be able to see all of that information too.
Thank you, Michelle.
I did just have one question for Michelle. Thank you so much, Michelle. The slide you had on the additional questions where you showed 247 people reported that they were experiencing homelessness due to the pandemic. Is that out of the entire 9,000, only 247 people said, or is that just of the unsheltered count? Okay.
It's just the unsheltered who were surveyed and answered yes.
Oh, because the unsheltered count also has the observations in them. Okay, because that number just seems very, very low to me, both of those. Okay.
I will also say that this question specifically, although answered more yes last year than this year, I don't think people are directly relating homelessness to COVID. And even being out there the day of the count, it felt a lot of people could actively say yes to rent increases, but couldn't directly say like, as a result of COVID, this is what happened.
All right, back to the motion to approve. Can I have a motion to approve the point in time count results?
This is Rachel. I'll move to approve.
Thank you. And may I have a second?
This is Danielle Wright. I'll second.
Thank you, Danielle. Okay, thanks. No worries. Okay. All right. Is there a discussion of the motion from the board before we proceed on to the public comment? All right. Comments from the public?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amy Schwab, Letter Human Services Campus. One, I know there's usually a work group that puts talking points to this information. So if I could ask you to note, there was a freeze warning that morning. In my experience, it was very early to wake people up while they were also trying to stay warm in whatever structure they might have been staying in or sleeping in. So I think that has to be reflected. I find it quite shocking. The unsheltered number was down at all, given the immediate experience around the campus. It also raised for me, I know our community has been back and forth as to the time of day to do the point in time count. Again, in my experience, waking people up or asking them to wake up and potentially complete a survey is very challenging at dark 30. So I'd ask in a debrief if we could revisit the time of day. And then I would make a strong ask to those who represent municipalities to share your municipality level data. It feels very challenging to have a regional conversation about solving homelessness if cities do not make their data and their breakdown of sheltered and unsheltered available to community conversation. Thank you.
To add, the full report will be posted on MAG's website. There'll be a press release going out around 3:15 today. And the unsheltered count is specifically in the full report, as well as an image on the website.
Katie, just to clarify, the municipality level data is on the website.
Yes, it breaks down the same data that we sent out to jurisdictions and gave you all time to ask questions and give feedback. But that is fully available on the 4th page of the report, as well as an image available on the website.
Katie, I have a question from Amy's feedback. I guess I'm curious, and I don't know where you'd get this, but what sense of percentage could people be missed that are not responding because they wanted to, sleep in or didn't want to get up and cold and dark? And is there any guesstimate of what kind of percentage we're talking about that weren't surveyed or counted?
I would say that our hope, and in training volunteers, they switched to an observation instead of an interview. So that is why we see more observations of folks than interviews. Being somebody that participated in the count, it is difficult to still do an observation with somebody who is maybe inside a structure that you're not going to just like peer into their shelter to be able to do the count to the greatest our ability possible. I think we've continued to iterate and make the best decisions possible in trying to count as many people as possible. We had over 1,000 volunteers out, more than we've ever had before out, and we'll continue to kind of investigate the best way to do the count in the future. But I think to kind of the continuous point about the system flow dashboard, point in time is really a point in time. It is not the only data point that we want to reference or do use in the community. And the report this year features 3 other data points that you should consider when looking at homelessness data in the community.
And just to add, Mike, the point in time count. Hold on. One second. No, that we do receive feedback when the survey is completed, and that was like some of the feedback that we did receive as well. So that's something moving forward. We'll figure like maybe training people on how to approach that situation, or try to have that conversation with people. But it's still cold. Yeah, and there was also like some data too where they were naming like objects. So we had to, throw away that data as well. So, because we can't confirm that's a person. But next year, we'll keep on improving.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Amy, for the valuable discussion. Appreciate that. All right, for those in the room, we're going to take a voice vote. Katie, will you go ahead and proceed with voice vote? For everyone in favor, please say yay.
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 Great. We will proceed with a roll call vote. Charles Sullivan.
Yeah.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll be sending out as well as it's posted on the MAG website for folks who are interested. We will move on to the next agenda item, which is coordinated entry evaluation. Kelly Donnelly Williams, Director of the Human Services Division, will share information about the ongoing evaluation of the coordinated entry system. In addition, Charles Sullivan represents the board on coordinated entry work group reviewing assessment and prioritization.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for having me on this topic. The MAG COC contracted with Home Base more than a year ago to do a coordinated assessment evaluation, of our COC, to specifically look at a variety of topics, including race equity issues across the system. We received an initial report at the beginning of March, which we had shared tentatively with members of the COC, although it is not yet public. And from that report, we had recommendation from the leadership of the Coordinated Entry Committee to put together a work group over the months of April, May, and June, meeting 6 times during those 3 months to discuss very specific topics related to the VI SPDAT tool as the assessment choice for our continuum of care. Many continuums of care across the nation have decided to move away from the VI SPDAT for a variety of reasons, including the creator of the VI SPDAT, who no longer recommends it as a tool because of race equity issues. The report did show race equity issues related to the VI SPDAT, and the coordinated entry evaluation leadership team came together. We put together a list of a handful of stakeholders across the continuum of care to invite to the work group to participate in 6 different meetings on a variety of topics. Memberships from that committee included individuals from both UMOM and HSC, both leadership and frontline staff, coordinated entry committee leadership, lived experience community representative, race equity committee representatives, a board representative, the city of Phoenix, who is our funder for this project, someone from Access, Liz DaCosta from Access, specifically related to the new waiver and how that will influence homeless services across the region, and then population-specific representatives, including seniors, youth, domestic violence, veterans, and individuals with serious mental illness. The topics that we're going to be discussed, and there has already been 1 meeting, include orientation to the community, the coordinated entry system redesign implementation, prioritization values, assessment questions, evaluation metrics, the pilot process, and interim prioritization. What we anticipate at the end of these 6 meetings and these 3 months of meetings is a draft report on what our continuum should do moving forward, either to modify the VI SPDAT, to create a new tool, to find a new tool, or to move forward with the tool we have as is. We welcome conversations from these meetings and also from stakeholders regarding the tool, and we hope to improve the process for individuals and families coming into our homeless system as a result. We did recognize that only inviting a handful of individuals, over a dozen individuals, to these conversations would be difficult for others who wanted to participate, and therefore we have made the meetings open to anybody who wants to attend. All of the meetings are listed on the MAG website under our calendar. You're able to attend. However, only individuals who are invited to attend can actively speak during the meetings, but MAG staff do staff the chat. And what we are anticipating is that we will monitor the chat, and we will not only answer those questions after the meeting, but we will email all of the members of the work group and anybody who has registered for that specific meeting with answers to any questions that come up during that time. Further, we are available to anybody who has additional questions about this process or any modifications they would like to see moving forward. We hope that the end of this conversation is an improved coordinated entry system across the board for individuals of color in particular, and individuals who may not have been able to get to the top of services previously through our current assessment process. With that, Madam Chair, I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Charles, do you have anything to add in addition?
I think Kelly covered it pretty well. It was a good first meeting where we came together, did an introduction, and started workshopping different vulnerable populations, just trying to get a good base as we move forward, and try and work on the prioritization schema. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the meetings, and I think we're on a good path.
Thank you, Charles. Does the board or public have any questions or comments? All right. Move on to our next agenda item. Next, we're going to discuss the strategic plan approval and update. Katie will provide an overview of the strategic plan changes from committees, as well as give a presentation on the status of the strategic plan.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. Included in your packet was the complete strategic plan with highlights of things that have changed because you can't track changes in PDF. So I'm going to give first a quick overview of those changes and then walk you through a presentation on the activities and the status of those activities in response to your strategic planning sessions. As far as I'll go section by section under the regulatory roles, oversight, and approvals. The few things that changed were a few wording changes under the best practices, policies, and procedures to stay consistent with language. And then the addition of reviewing equity policies and procedures of COC funded programs and reviewing racial diversity among COC funded programs and COC committee membership. Those two additions were in response to the Race Equity Committee's suggestions. I'm gonna pause, see if you all have any feedback or concerns about adding those two additions.
So this is just stuff that you will be an additional responsibility looking closer into.
The Race Equity Committee will be responsible for
Okay.
doing that. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm gonna move forward to under the system performance measures. Taylor, we are not yet on the presentation. Thank you. A couple of timelines changed. So the data analytics work group is going to be bringing forward recommendations in April instead of March. The coordinated entry committee is moving collaboration from June to August, and the long stairs is moving to August as well. In addition, the data committee recommended 3 additions. Soliciting and addressing major data issues that may affect the accuracy of the by name list, improving data quality within HMIS, particularly related to high priority fields identified by data committee, and building understanding of the by name list in the community. Those first 2 being a timeline of August and the last one being a timeline of December. In addition, the Race Equity Committee would like to provide a quarterly report to the board regarding proposed policy changes to improve racial and ethnic disparities as identified by the review of the system performance measures by race and ethnicity, and shooting for a timeline of September and then ongoing quarterly after that. The last change is reviewing system performance measures by race and ethnicity. They are aiming to have that done by December and then ongoing after that as well. Any questions or feedback on the system performance measures section? All right. Moving forward to the monitoring, evaluation, and technical assistance section, the recommendation to allow for annual review and input of related questions for the NOFO scorecard by each applicable committee was added. This is specifically in response to how we score race equity questions. Race Equity Committee should be giving feedback to rank and review. Same with how do we score lived experience? Lived experience committee should be giving feedback. So that's what it means by applicable committee. And then simultaneously, applicable committees will make annual recommendations for selected trainings. So, for example, if race equity trainings are a focus, then Race Equity Committee would be giving feedback on those trainings. Any feedback on that?
As a former rank and review member, I appreciate that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And then lastly, wanted to highlight the Race Equity Committee is really focused on the Race Equity Workforce Toolkit as part of implementing the Race Equity Plan. And so folded that into the 4 plans of the goal and highlighted each of those within the strategic plan. Any questions on that?
That's great.
All right. So also as really an effort on two fronts to keep you all apprised of the activities happening within the continuum, but also within the strategic plan on a quarterly basis, going to be working through this presentation. We did have every chair of the committees review this presentation and give feedback as to any additional information that should be included in this presentation. Next slide. This is broken down into the 4 different sections, just like what we covered in your strategic plan. So really excited to announce Data Committee recruited 7 new members to the Data Committee. They will be starting in May. The point in time count, as you just heard, was approved and will be submitted to HUD tomorrow. We are continuing to work on ESG coordination, so training and understanding. They've been working with the Corporation for Supportive Housing for trainings over the last 4 months and will continue to be doing so over the next month or so. And they have been working to align their funding and scopes of work to make sure that ESG looks the same kind of across all of the different funders in the community. And then finally, you all approved 8 policies this quarter. Huge shout out to all of the committees, a lot of work going into that, but then finally approved by the board in January. Next slide. Some upcoming things. Board recruitment, when I gave this drafted this presentation, was not yet finalized, but is now finalized. We are also undergoing Youth Action Committee is currently recruiting members through next week, and the Race Equity Committee will be recruiting members in June. So if you are interested in either of those, please reach out to MAG staff and we can get you connected. We are hard at work at the gaps analysis. We'll be sending out a variety of stakeholder meetings and focus groups in May. So look at the newsletter for more information on that and invites to come, as well as looking at past background data to inform that gaps analysis. ESG is continuing to align on monitoring activities to make sure that nonprofits are not getting bombarded by monitoring, but also that we're looking for the same activities throughout. We will be kicking off the NOFO process momentarily because they just never stop. We'll be reviewing community adopted best practices, more to come, but announcements on sessions to provide feedback will be in May. And then we will be reviewing your charter. We will start reviewing that with committees in May and then have a work group of you all review their changes and then recommend changes and adopt those. Next slide with the system performance measures. We launched a system performance measure webpage this quarter. We completed a diversion and prevention one-pager that was specifically focused on the local jurisdiction committee, trying to understand the differences between diversion and prevention and examples to be able to deploy. The returns to homelessness analysis by the data analytics work group, they have made huge strides in moving that work forward and will be bringing forward recommendations to the different committees this quarter. And then deep diving to understand the challenges of the by name list was completed, and there is more activity to come in the future. Next slide. Here is where the majority of the work has been landing. So upcoming within the system performance measures, the Coordinated Entry Committee will continue to be working on domestic violence data integration. They held a training, and now 2 of the 6 domestic violence shelters have been reporting their data consistently, but hoping to continue to educate and then improve that over the next few weeks. They are working on homeless prevention integration and refinement of thresholds. So they set a threshold, but we'll be revisiting that data to determine if that threshold is the threshold we should be setting and then moving that forward next. We are continuing to review households without a VI SPDAT to make sure that folks are engaged and getting a continuous process in place to be able to have folks that are not getting assessed. And then really continuing to work through the evaluation. Part of that evaluation is providing continuous improvement into the coordinated entry system and working through to make sure that we can have that improvement happen, not just every 4 years when we do this giant evaluation for a year and a half, but really allow that continuous process improvement to happen. Moving on to Data Committee, one of the goals that they set this year was to develop a baseline of nonprofits not participating in HMIS and making sure we can get more folks into HMIS. So kind of to that comment earlier being made about who are we missing on our system flow dashboard? If folks are not in HMIS, we are missing them. And so really continuously working to reach out to those outreach teams that are not necessarily connected into HMIS and getting them enrolled. And then they will be reviewing that data analytics analysis that was completed and continue to provide recommendations out. Next slide. The local jurisdiction committee is continuing to increase the number of rental units available. So I'm really making sure that folks have a place to go. That is part of Pathways Home, but also part of the local jurisdiction committee. And then continuing to expand employment opportunities and access to employment. So working with those other partners like Arizona at Work and things like that. The Race Equity Committee will be reviewing this system performance measures broken down by race and ethnicity. So that is one of the things that the Race Equity Committee has really been kind of diving into and trying to understand, do we have an inequitableness happening across the different system performance measures? And finally, the committee, they are working on a work group to increase connections to systems of care, including higher level of care in order to reduce homelessness. And then simultaneously working on a process to educate other systems of care about the homeless response system. So how do we better connect with the education system, the hospital system, the jail system, so that they understand what we can do and we can understand what they can do to make sure we are continuously educating folks. And then reviewing these system performance measures and how we got to these numbers. Next slide. All right, moving on to work groups. Outreach Collaborative, they are continuing to work through policies and procedures to make sure that we are truly seeing every single person that we can see and having consistent outreach policies and procedures across all outreach teams. We have over 20 different outreach providers in the community, and so making sure that there's consistency, that when you see somebody in Wickenburg, you're getting the same service as you see somebody in Queen Creek on the opposite side of the valley. Our Move On work group is piloting for moving on from PSH to public housing authorities. So making sure that we continuously have folks moving openings in permanent supportive housing and then moving those folks into public housing authorities. This looks a little bit different for different populations. And so really trying to tailor a process that works for everyone from a single to a family, and making sure that we have those openings and that they will be successful in those public housing authority Section 8 vouchers. And then lastly, Dwell AZ, they are releasing an RFI, request for information, to determine the administrative owner for the warehouse. They're working through kind of next steps with that, and more to come in May. And then we also submitted a data package to access the workflow, the data elements, and the release of information so that we're able to share access data in with the warehouse, which includes HMIS data. Okay. Next slide. Any questions on system performance measures before I move forward? All right.
And there's a lot of information here. I mean, a tremendous amount of work that the committees do, the strategic plan is put together. Is there any sense of, I don't even know the right word, promoting this, or at least letting elected official bodies know that it's not just the homeless count has gone up, but there's a lot more going on? So for instance, whether it's the County Board of Supervisors or it's the, Phoenix City Council or the City Council from, Peoria or Mesa. I mean, how do they even know the in-depth work that's going on?
So on a quarterly basis, we also present to them all of the work that is going on. So all of the, we present to every city and town manager and every mayor or board of supervisor chair, that on a quarterly basis. And so, and we've also been invited to council meetings to present directly to the entire council. I'm happy to provide that support to any staff in the room or city staff in providing that presentation as well.
Just tells you how much I know. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Moving forward to monitoring, evaluation, and technical assistance, we reviewed the NOFO and you all approved changes to that scorecard. And we completed 7 check-ins and 3 on-site monitoring visits, and provided technical assistance to our lower scoring agencies, including some monthly meetings with all of them. And then we launched the learning management system, which Dylan has provided you all quite a few updates on that. Really excited about selecting that vendor. Next slide. In this next quarter, we have 2 additional on-site monitoring visits happening in May. We are developing and refining the performance standards, which you all will have coming to you soon. Continuous coordination with ESG funders for monitoring. Continuing to provide ongoing technical assistance to all of our COC funded agencies and additional agencies outside of our COC funded. And then the learning management, content creation, and rollout that will be rolling out by the end of this quarter. Okay, next slide. Communication coordination strategy. We further refined the funding filter, and that's been made available for folks. We launched the public education campaign and the toolkit associated with that public education campaign. And then we are also rolling out a series of one-pagers that are really describing all of this work on our website. So both the strategic plan and Pathways Home reference sheets for all of this being summed up into a nice one-pager that you can hand to someone else. My apologies for not including in the packet for you all, but we'll get that out to you all by the end of today, specifically on the strategic plan. Next slide. Coming up this quarter, we are continuously working on the Shelter Bill of Rights, and that will come to you all by the end of this quarter. Continuing to educate folks on the understanding of the data available in our community. We do have a series of one-pagers that have gone up on our website about what is the system flow dashboard, what is the homelessness trends report, how does this compare to the point in time count, but we'll continue to work through that. The YHDP grant, which you all heard about earlier today, continuing to work through the communications plan and having that ready for your review by the end of this quarter. And then the race equity plan moving forward, all 4 steps of that plan. Additional COC activities that are not incorporated in your strategic plan in case you wanted to do more. Working through the quarterly trends report in May, you will have that ready for your approval for Q1 of this year. Continuing to approve data requests and access to data. This has become more and more a topic of discussion as we focus on the HMIS data and how important that is. And so we are getting more folks focused on that data and wanting to have access to it. And then continuing to move forward the affordable housing webinars. Our next webinar will be in May in partnership with the Arizona Community Foundation and other folks. May 2nd is the next webinar, and we will be getting that out to all of you. You all should have also received notice of that about a week ago. That email went out. So with that, any questions?
Katie, this is Vicki Phillips. I have a quick question for you. In the presentations, you said that we present the information out quarterly to municipalities. And does the feedback from the municipalities ever come back to the board as a feedback loop? Do we ever get to hear some of the feedback? I know that we ask a lot of questions about information and data and whatnot. Is that information ever shared?
Happy to have that feedback loop. I think up to this point, we have not received feedback other than further clarity on the activities being done. But if there were things that should come back or direction that should come back to the COC, we would definitely bring that back to you all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments for discussion regarding the information Katie presented?
Thank you. Amy Schwabenlander, Human Services Campus. Question, Katie, in the section on race equity principles, it says review the committee. Does that imply also the board? And what about MAG staff as the collaborative applicant?
The COC committees does include the board and all 9 lateral committees. And it is reviewing kind of all of that encompassment. I don't think that's a word. Correct.
All right. Any further discussion, questions, comments? All right. I'd like to have a motion to approve the strategic plan.
This is Chris Hallett. I so move.
Yes. May I get a second?
This is Rachel. I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Rachel. Is there a discussion of the motion from the board?
Just, it's been a very busy,
Yeah.
busy quarter. That was a lot.
Work. Very impressive.
Any comments from the public? All right. For those in the room, we will take a voice vote. Those in favor, please say yay.
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 Those opposed, please say nay. All right. I will now ask Katie to proceed with a roll call of those joining online.
Charles Sullivan,
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yeah.
The motion passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to see what we can accomplish throughout the rest of this year, and a huge thanks to our committees for continuing to move the needle forward and doing great work out there. Great. Next up, Pathways Home update. Katie will provide an overview of the work of Pathways Home.
As you all just asked, we do give a presentation to Management Committee and Regional Council on a quarterly basis. Part of the ask from you all was that you would like to see this presentation before it goes to your managers and city mayor elected officials. So next slide. Quick overview of the presentation, walks through the continuum of care efforts, walks through Pathways Home and the actions taken, and then talks through some next steps. Next slide. Start with continuum of care efforts. Next slide. News to them since their last update, we did receive $36.3 million in funding. It included 28 housing projects, HMIS coordinated entry and planning, as well as including 2 new housing projects. So really excited to get those launched off the ground. Next slide. We will have a much more detailed presentation of the point in time count, but did not want to rehash that with you all since you just heard that presentation earlier today. Next slide. We also talked through the updates of Pathways Home and the action steps within the regional action plan. Next slide. This is a slide that not only the local jurisdiction committee, but you all probably see more frequently. This really describes the progress made of each of the action steps. As you can see, most of the activities are underway, with some of them being ongoing, and now 2 have changed to green, meaning they are done, both the community court toolkit and the interdepartmental teams toolkit. Next slide. Really exciting this quarter that we launched this progress snapshot, which I referenced earlier in the strategic plan. We have this one pager not only for Pathways Home, but also for the strategic plan to really sum up all of the different activities that are happening throughout the continuum of care and the Pathways Home action plan. This will also be made available on our website to see the progress happening over time, quarter by quarter. Next slide. We are seeing continued increase in people experiencing homelessness. And so I bring this to folks' attention because not only are we seeing the point in time count is really just a point in time, and yet we're seeing this kind of increase, especially year over year increase happening, not only within our homelessness trends report, but also kind of feeling that increase. Next slide. One of the highlights that we have specifically talked to local jurisdictions about is the increasing in housing targets. So initially, when the plan was created back in 2021, we had a projection to reduce homelessness by 25%. We needed to increase temporary housing by 770 units and increase permanent housing by 1,225 units. We continue to look at this on a quarterly basis and reevaluate those housing targets. At this time, our temporary housing has moved to 434 units and our permanent housing has moved to 1,432 units. both of these are an increase over our last update in February, mostly because of that increase in homelessness that we are seeing and feeling on the ground. Have made significant progress on the temporary housing units. We've opened over 1,000 temporary housing units since the numbers were counted initially in 2021. But we are still seeing that we do not have enough temporary housing units to reduce homelessness by 25% on the ground. So I want to quickly talk through some next steps that we're proposing to Regional Council. Next slide. We're continuing to dive into the funding questions and discussion about next steps. We know we are hitting this giant funding cliff come 2024 and really into 2026 when ARPA money cannot be used anymore. And so continuing to talk about how are we addressing funding on an ongoing basis and continuing to support the projects that we've opened through COVID. Second, we are continuing to implement the steps of the plan that are underway, and we have really launched into some phase 2 action steps of the completed steps. So how are we now taking interdepartmental teams? How are we utilizing interdepartmental teams from jurisdiction to jurisdiction? How are we utilizing community courts the most effective way possible? So with that, I will open up to any questions that you all have or any additions that you all want to present to Regional Council and Management Committee.
I guess this is Mike Hughes. I guess the question I have is when you say or your target to reduce by 25%, what do you do with that when it's in a sense just so unreasonable or unattainable?
I think that is a great ask to Management Committee and Regional Council. That the 25% was the goal that they set back in 2021 as something that felt reasonable. We are continuing to see more people come into homelessness. And so really working through kind of all of these 14 steps how do we address the front end of folks coming into the system? How do we address the folks into the system? And then how do we get folks out faster? So really iterating through all 3 of those different steps and trying to figure out how do we continuously address kind of this increasing number.
And again, I ask it not from the point of giving us a hard time. I guess I ask it from the sense of all this work that's being done. And yet if you were to look at the number, there's almost a sense of, wow, but we're not cutting it or making progress and so how do we adjust that so that it can be looked upon as something a little more feasible and realistic? I guess, am I making sense when I'm even stating?
One of the things that I would share, and I don't think this is necessarily an answer, but prior to Pathways Home becoming a plan, the times that we gave updates to Management Committee and Regional Council were really along the lines of point in time count once a year and our notice of funding opportunity. And now we are giving quarterly updates. It is a consistent topic of conversation across councils around the Valley. There are more people paying attention to homelessness and getting moved to act, and we have more funding than ever before getting poured into homelessness. And so I don't think money is the only answer, but I definitely think it is moving in the right direction as an answer.
Katie, quick question. You said that the regional committee established the 25%. Do we have any idea what that number was based on?
A combination of reasonable feasibility and also the every jurisdiction committing to doing more. I will say that we really do ask every single jurisdiction from your largest to your smallest to take action towards doing more. And on that continuum, being able to pour in 25% felt like a reasonable number.
Do you know if we had ever demonstrated historically a 25% decrease or impact in anything that we had done as a system in homelessness?
I think the best answer I have is no. The short answer is we also did not have the data systems to be able to track it. The point that folks were looking at was point in time count, and that's just kind of one piece of the story, not necessarily the whole story. And so I think there is not data that we can point to saying that we were doing it, but we also didn't have good data systems to look at it.
Thank you, Katie.
And Katie, I should probably know this, but does the Pathways Home Plan also have a prevention goal? I saw the temporary housing, permanent housing. What's the prevention goal? And how are we doing there?
Paraphrasing from the plan, because I don't think I have the 30-page thing memorized. There is one of the 14 substeps of under increased safe housing option is to increase eviction prevention and coordination. Specifically, that is part of the work of the local jurisdiction committee, going back to the strategic plan, is to better utilize prevention and diversion funding and understanding what prevention and diversion means within the system, and then how do we better fund it on the back end.
So, and if I recall correctly, we've done the one pager on the differences. And so now it's about resourcing that properly.
Correct. Prior to even kind of in looking at through letters of commitment and things like that, definitely that has not necessarily been a primary focus of jurisdictions. A lot of our prevention and diversion funding was specifically eviction prevention, running through like community action programs, and not necessarily more flexible funding in the sense that you would think of diversion and prevention within the homeless system.
And just one more question. When does this go to regional council, this presentation?
It will go to management committee on May 10th and regional council on May 24th.
Thank you. Any additional comments for discussion from the board or the public? No? All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item. The next item is a request for future agenda items. Do board members have any action or discussion items for future meetings? All right, thank you. All right, comments from the board for this next agenda item. Comments from the board. Is there anyone on the board who has any additional announcements or events that they would like to highlight?
Yes, I would just like to share that the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence Thrive Luncheon. It's called The Art of Healing, and it's on May 16th at the Lighthouse Art Space. And the theme is, as always, uplifting survivors and honoring advocates and allies. And there will be an artist doing a live painting that'll be for auction. So if you're interested, you can go to our website at acesdv.org and look up the announcement and register to attend and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Danelle. Any additional comments, announcements, or updates? No? All right. Before we close the meeting, I'd like to put an ask out to board members to consider being a co-chair. If you are interested in being a co-chair, please send a letter of interest to Katie by May 12th, and we'll discuss at our next meeting.
We have received interest from one person, Rachel. So if what? We cannot vote now because it is not on the agenda for voting. But if anybody else is interested, feel free to reach out to me. And it will be on the agenda next month for approval.
All right. Well, in summary, congratulations to the new board members. Extremely excited about the new additions. Katie, thank you for all the good work and the comprehensive overview that you really provided with the systems performance measures and just really the great work, highlighting the great work that the committees are doing.
Yeah, just a quick question. What does that take our count to and what's quorum with that number?
13 and quorum is then 7.
Thank you. All right. And again, thank you very much for the point in time count information. We appreciate that. Thank you, Michelle. All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned.